people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
The undisputed super featherweight champion of the world, Alicia, the Baumgardner.
That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. DAZN posted this image via their social media account. It's been a year to the day since Alicia Baumgardner avenged her lone defeat to Kristina Linardatu. In that way, it's been a year to the day since Alicia Baumgardner had a fight. Alicia herself responding to the post said, "The one, the only, the bomb." They didn't think it would seem taboo posting that given everything that happened afterwards? Apparently not, but the victory in spite of the controversy afterwards that has now been quelled, it still stands. Alicia has an official victory over Kristina Linardatu in spite of the anti-doping fiasco afterwards.
Christina's not happy about it.
I don't expect her to be, but when exactly? When can we expect to see Alicia Baumgardner back in the ring? Moreover, when can we expect to see her back on the DAZN platform? Because the rights to her fight, as we all know, they went to Global Titans or Global Combat.
Something or other.
In association with her manager, come to find out, even though there are still many details that have not been verified. When exactly is the fight happening? On what platform will it air? Where will people be able to see it? And what happens afterwards?
That's what brings us here.
I've seen a sentiment expressed that beyond the Pursoon fight, Alicia might be a free agent, that she might separate from Matchroom, go someplace else, and I thought about it, and I can't imagine where she would go, because Top Rank doesn't have a lot going on outside of Senicia Estrada.
She's all the way down there at light flyweight.
Michaela Mayer, you can forget about Michaela Mayer. They've basically outsourced her to the United Kingdom. That's where she's been fighting for the last 2 years or so. They don't have a lot going on with her. And that for Alicia Baumgardner, leaving Matchroom to go to Top Rank would be less than ideal because they don't have a lot going on when it comes to their female fighters and just women's boxing overall. Golden Boy wouldn't be much better. Not for Alicia. They ain't got the bodies.
They've got Gabriela Fundora under contract. I think they still have Marlena Esparza, but none of those girls are potential opponent options for Alicia, so why would she go over there?
It just wouldn't make sense. You think about the current state at the weight at 130 pounds and how Alicia is still that division's undisputed champion. But in terms of super fights and relevant fights with relevant opponents, there are not that many left outside of the Pursoon fight.
After that, there's not much point in sticking around.
Not at 130, there's not a lot going on. Not for Alicia. So a move upstairs to 135 is conceivable, and it just so happens that at 135, Matchroom has not one, but two prized stallions, two champions.
Rhiannon Dixon holding a WBO, which she's going to be defending very soon against former champion Terry Harper, and Beatriz Ferreira holding the IBF.
But when you think about it, even if Alicia becomes a free agent after the Pursoon fight, Matchroom is still the place to be.
They have the fights, they have the fighters, the bodies, the belts.
Rhiannon Dixon's got the WBO. Beatriz Ferreira's got the IBF. Katie Taylor still has 2 alphabet titles at that weight. I don't think she's going to hold on to them for much longer.
But she still has the WBA and WBC titles.
She still has them. So where some might feel that Alicia Baumgardner might leave Matchroom in the near future, I'm not so sure that's a good idea. You leave them, well, how do you get access to those fights? How do you get access to those fighters?
Those would still be the most relevant fights you could have. Anywhere at or around these weights. You're going to go somewhere else to target them when you're right there already.
Well, where does this sentiment come from? that Alicia Baumgardner might leave to go somewhere else.
Well, I saw some people saying it because Matchroom didn't put up a truckload of money to win the purse bid for the Pursoon fight.
That based on the bid they put in, it doesn't seem like they were all that invested or interested in winning the rights to that fight.
There's that.
There's also that Alicia Baumgardner herself said that after this Pursoon fight, she's going to be a free agent, free to negotiate with anyone. But looking at the landscape between 130 and 135, I can't see why she would leave. I can't see a better place for her to go, for her to be, than Matchroom, because Matchroom still has the fighters.
Top Rank is not as invested in women's boxing as Matchroom is. Golden Boy, they've got 1 or 2 fighters, but nobody at 130, nobody at 135.
And you can forget about the PBC. They don't sign women fighters. They don't have a single woman under contract.
Matchroom is still the place to be.
That's how it seems to me. So even if Alicia achieves free agency in the next 1 or 2 fights, she's already in the right place. I don't think she should go anywhere. Just one man's opinion. Feel free to disagree. We've yet to hear an official announcement as to when the Pursoon fight will be happening, where will it be going down, who's going to air it. There are a lot of questions that need answers. And of course, what will Alicia be doing after that? If she beats Delphine and stays undisputed champion, does she stay at Matchroom or does she go somewhere else? In lightweight news, the official word has come down from Mauricio Suleiman, the WBC president, who says the WBC has ordered the mandatory title defense of our lightweight champion Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda. Very much looking forward to this great match. In some ways, this is good news depending on who's looking at it. You know, if you're a fan and you want to see a fight like this and you want to see that process sped along, then this is good news because this forces them to negotiate with each other
on a deadline.
If you're Shakur and you're looking for a relevant fight with a relevant fighter, then it's good news that way, and that way it's good news, but it doesn't give you that much time to make up your mind. Where do you want to go? Who do you want to work with? Do you want to work with Matchroom? Do you want to work with Golden Boy? Seemingly, the World Boxing Council hasn't given you much of a choice because now you have to deal with Golden Boy. You have to deal with them to make this fight.
Good news in some ways, perhaps not in others.
I would love to figure out a way to work with him. I think he's a very talented fighter. I strongly feel that Shakur needs some good dancing partners. You know, Shakur reminds me of a Mayweather. When I promoted Mayweather for 15 fights, I had every single opponent for him. Okay, all the opponents that Golden Boy had, we fed him to Mayweather, and Mayweather became Mayweather. So I think Shakur is in a similar situation where if we have the right opponents, we can build another Mayweather. But you need the right opponents.
Oscar De La Hoya said in plain English, for Shakur Stevenson to get that fight, he has to sign to Golden Boy. He has to make a commitment to them. In light of the World Boxing Council's order, if nothing else, that nudges Shakur in that direction because now you have to work with them. If you want to keep your title, you have to satisfy your mandatory. They're putting both parties on the spot, both Shakur and William.
And this nudges Shakur in the direction of Golden Boy unless...
Unless what?
Unless they can't reach a deal within the grace period and a purse bid rolls around. If a purse bid ensues, then anybody can bid on the fight. Golden Boy, Matchroom, if they so choose.
Now, why would they choose to do that? Who knows how far along conversations have gone between Shakur Stevenson and Eddie Hearn for him to sign to them. If he does, then they'll have a reason, a real reason to bid on the fight, not just to be an obstruction
or intrusive,
not just to crash Oscar's party, but because they're involved. They have a vetted interest in Shakur Stevenson, but that's if he makes a commitment to them between now and the time a purse bid rolls around, a purse bid ensues, because the order just came down. They have several days and several weeks to reach a deal amicably. If they can't,
here comes a purse bid.
The fight itself is the classic matchup of the boxer versus the puncher, with Shakur Stevenson being the boxer and William Zepeda being the puncher. And I've already talked about this fight several times already in previous videos, that stylistically, William Zepeda has the right style for the job. Now the question is, at what level does he compete with that style? Is he a C-level pressure fighter? B level, A level?
Because that matters too. There are different tiers, different grades for every single base style. The pressure fighter, the pure boxer, the boxer puncher, as not all of them are created equal. Some are better than others.
Give us an example.
Artur Beterbiev and Joe Smith Jr. They're both pressure fighters, they both are, but Artur is a cut above Joe Smith Jr., and we saw that when they fought.
He beat him silly.
Same base style, both of those guys have the same base style, but one guy has all the bells and whistles and all the nuances that the other guy doesn't have. So just because two guys share the same base style, that doesn't mean they're both as effective with that base style.
That if Joe Smith Jr. is a C+ pressure fighter, that would make Artur either a B+ or an A-. We
know that William is a pressure fighter. We can all see that. Now we have to grade him.
Is he a C-level pressure guy, B-level, A-level? Because depending on his grade, this could be a long night for Shakur Stevenson, as historically, pressure fighters give pure boxers hell.
Think about it. Jarrett Hurd versus Erislandy Lara, Jarrett Hurd versus Tony Harrison, Tim Tszyu versus Tony Harrison.
Pressure fighters give pure boxers hell.
Few exceptions aside, and I do mean exceptions, more often than not, when you put the pressure fighter in there, the volume puncher in there, with an economic outside fighter, it doesn't end well for the outside fighter because they're so focused on finesse.
And trying to pick their moments.
Box from a safe distance safely, that moment never comes. The guy opposite the ring is trying to mow you down, throwing 4 and 5 punches at a time. You're looking for a safe moment to let your hands go, and it don't come, and before you know it, you're getting drawn into an exchange. You're getting sucked into a war, which favors the pressure fighter.
Like what happened to Zelfa Barrett against Shavkat Rakhimov.
Zelfa Barrett tried to fight him off in the pocket. He did try to assert himself. He did try to engage, and all that did was get him beat up. And that's if the guy tries to assert himself.
If the guy tries to run.
You want to spend the whole night on your bike? You end up like Marcus Brown ended up with Artur Beterbiev. You're just allowing him to gain momentum as he bears down on you.
That's it.
Stylistically, William definitely has the right style for the job. The question now is he on the level?
This mandate from the WBC would at least theoretically help us get to that answer, but there's a problem.
What's the problem?
Oscar De La Hoya is non-committal. He reacted to the news by saying, check this out. William Zepeda is so badass, he has 4 sanctioning bodies to choose from. Nobody will tell him who he must fight next.
In other words, he's non-committal.
That's what that means. He's non-committal. Maybe he doesn't want to make that fight next under these circumstances within this time frame.
But didn't you just say that this order nudges Shakur Stevenson in the direction of Golden Boy Promotions?
It does, but that doesn't mean that Oscar wants to make this fight in a jiffy. You know Oscar. He likes to marinate fights.
Remember what he said.
What?
Unless Shakur makes a commitment to Golden Boy Promotions, unless he signs to them, and to my knowledge, he hasn't, that fight don't go down.
I think William stands a legitimate chance of winning that fight, but that doesn't change that Oscar's holding it up, that he's dragging his feet. He's sandbagging it.
He's been sandbagging it.
It's bad optics for William Zepeda. It's bad optics for him that here you have an opportunity to fight for an alphabet title against the somebody, and Oscar might mess that up for you.
It's bad optics. You can't blame Shakur Stevenson for this. You can't blame him for Oscar sandbagging it.
Well, who does Oscar want William to fight?
Likely the WBO champion, Denis Berinchyk, who's a cheaper alternative. He's an unbeaten guy, he's an unbeaten champion, and he don't cost as much as Shakur. Oscar would probably prefer that William fight Denis next instead of Shakur.
So don't get too excited.
This does nudge Shakur in Golden Boy's direction, but who says that Golden Boy wants to make that fight next?
They might not.
Upstairs in men's super middleweight news, per Everything Boxing, the PBC is expected to stage its first non-pay-per-view event next month on the 17th at the Caribe Royale in Orlando. It will be Caleb Plant versus Trevor McCumby in the main event, and Stephen Fulton versus Ronnie Rios in the co-feature.
A couple of months ago, the PBC was rumored to be doing its first non-pay-per-view show in June, per Dan Raphael via his sources, but June came and went.
And they didn't do it. It didn't happen. The only show the PBC on Amazon staged was the Gervonta Davis versus Frank Martin fight. This month, they have no shows scheduled, pay-per-view or otherwise. They're not doing anything in the month of July. In August,
This might be the only show they do.
what would be only the fourth show they will have done this calendar year, 8 months into it. Just 4 shows in 8 months, and 3 of them were pay-per-views.
Caleb is supposed to be rebounding off his loss to David Benavidez with unbeaten Trevor McCumby.
Per the rumors, it's been a year, well over a year actually, since Caleb lost a decision to David Benavidez in March of last year. It's taken them a long time, a very long time to get Caleb back out there, and it's time wasted, time squandered, because there are a lot of good fights out there for Caleb. A fight with Jaime Munguia or Edgar Berlanga, Christian Mabili,
Diego Pacheco.
Bektemir Melenkuziev. There's a new crop of super middleweights sprouting, and for them, Caleb Plant would be the ideal opponent. Litmus test.
William Skull, IBF mandatory challenger, William Skull.
He's still worth something. He's still a familiar face and a solid fighter. And it's taking them this long to get him back out there when he could be making money and he could be fighting in good fights. Very good fights. So it's understandable that his next fight is going to be a rebound fight since he's coming off a loss and he hasn't fought in over a year. But supposing he actually fights Trevor and beats Trevor, what happens after that? Does the PBC even get him back out there before this year is out? And against who?
Demetrius Andrade, maybe? I saw Demetrius called him out a few weeks ago.
Demetrius is coming off a loss to the same guy that beat him. Same guy that beat Caleb in his last fight. He's coming off a loss to David. So I suppose that's a fight that the PBC could do. But ask yourself, is that reason enough to stay over there?
Is it?
To fight Demetrius Andrade?
Tell me that you wouldn't make more money fighting Jaime Munguia or Edgar Berlanga, hell, even Diego Pacheco. I think Matchroom would pay Caleb better to fight the likes of a Diego Pacheco than whatever he stands to make fighting Demetrius. I'm sorry. Demetrius ain't worth no money.
What's funny, a lot of this also applies to Demetrius. Demetrius Andrade versus Jaime Munguia, Demetrius Andrade versus Edgar Berlanga, or Diego Pacheco, or William Skull, Bektemir Melenkuziev.
There is still opportunities out there for Demetrius like there is still opportunities out there for Caleb Plant. That's the gist of it.
So that if he does end up fighting Trevor McCumby and he beats him and he rebounds off that loss, I can't see any reason, a good reason, for him to stay at the PBC. Seems to me that it would be best if he jumped ship. That if you want to fight in big fights and get big purses...
What about Jermall Charlo?
Well, on the premise that the PBC might try to make Plant versus Charlo after a McCumby fight, the question is, how long would it take them to make that fight? And what's it worth to Caleb? Does that pay better than going somewhere else and fighting someone else? Does it?
I don't think so.
Fighting a washed-up Jermall Charlo who's circling the drain, battling addiction.
That guy's career ain't got no momentum.
What the PBC has to offer Caleb Plant at 168 pounds, it just doesn't seem worthwhile when you compare it to what he could be making fighting someone else. So let's see if Caleb returns in August. Let's see if he wins, and let's see what happens after that.
If he stays over there.
I personally don't think he should. What few fights the PBC can make for him are not intriguing enough for me and my money.
Washed up Charlo and nobody Andrade.
You're telling me that this is what's keeping you at the PBC, potential fights with these guys.